Hello, everyone. Welcome to the showcase of Pug's brand new September Coke Business Resource release. It's all about running your very own Coke business enterprise. This simple and quick explanation of this resource is that players will be able to stock up their Coke business with supplies and then passively earn Coke product to sell on the street. Players need to be online for their Coke business to produce product. This is to incentivize players actively playing and coming back to your server. Players will be able to run Coke plane missions to supply their workers with supplies, upgrade their Coke business worker count and drug production rate, upgrade their planes for faster supply runs, and more. Players will be able to find hidden Coke lab doors around the map. Each Coke lab door is unique and can only be owned by the first person to purchase it. Developers can very easily add as many doors as they would like within the config of the resource. To add more doors, all developers have to do is find a location they would like to make a new door at, face in the direction they would like the player to be facing when exiting the laboratory. Copy a vector 4 at the location and place it in the config under the config.coke lab doors table. Once this is done, then you would need to restart the script. It has been made that simple for developers to make as many doors as they like. This resource also comes with 30 doors already pre-configured. Once a player has found a hidden Coke lab door, if the door has not already been purchased by another player, they will have the option to purchase it for the price that developers have set the cost to. Once a successful purchase of the laboratory, the owner will now have a blip on the map of the location of their very own Coke laboratory business. Other players will be able to enter the Coke lab if they have the required password set by the owner, and the owner of the Coke lab can now begin their adventures of operating and managing their very own criminal Coke business enterprise. Upon entering their brand new Coke lab, players will be introduced to the product manager and the first 3 workers the player receives with the purchase of their Coke lab. There are 2 locations the player can interact with to start. The first location is the main laptop of the laboratory, and the other is the supplies and products shelves. Here at the heart of the Coke laboratory, players will be introduced with a lot of information and features. You will see statistics such as the current Coke product process time and the current Coke process amount each time the products are finished. Next, you will see that players also have the option to customize their password to whatever digit password they like. Players who enter the laboratory with the password do not have access to anything in the laboratory unless they have the police job. The next option players will have on this laptop menu is to hire more workers. Players can upgrade the workers count 3 times. Each time a player upgrades their worker count, multiple things will happen. The product process time will decrease by 15%. The amount of product created at a time will increase by 15%, and the cost of hiring more workers will increase each time the player upgrades. All of these numbers explained are all changeable very easily within the config. Next, we will see that we can manage the members of our laboratory. Players' laboratory will start off with only being able to run by themselves. Here, players can choose to upgrade their member slots that will allow them to bring in other players to help run the laboratory together. The default maximum members is only 2, because the more members that are online, the more product is made at a time. Developers can of course change this number as well. At any time, the owner of the Coke lab can remove the other members for a $5,000 fee. Moving on to the plane management feature, here you will find that players will start with a Dodo plane and have the ability to upgrade and purchase 2 other planes, giving the player a total of 3 pre-configured planes to choose from. Each plane upgrade will cost a fee and require a set amount of supplies in their stash to obtain. This is to give progression to the Coke business. Players can choose from any plane they own to do a drug run that they like as long as they have purchased it. Developers will also be able to add as many planes as they would like. Finally, moving on to how the player will run their Coke business, they will need to stock up their Coke laboratory with supplies for the workers to turn into product. To do this, the players will need to select the Pick Up Supplies menu option and choose the amount of runs they would like to do. Players can choose to do up to 3 runs back to back to back without having to come back to their Coke lab and start a new run. This is also very easily changeable within the config. Now that the player has started a drug run mission, you will hear sound effects and find blips on your map all throughout the mission to indicate when you need to complete each objective. Now that the player has started his drug run, he will receive his first objective to head up to one of the 2 pre-configured airports marked on the map. Once the player has arrived to the airport hangar, the plane will spawn and the player will be tasked with loading up the plane of a random 2 to 6 boxes that are marked randomly around the hangar each drug run the player does. If another player already has a plane in the hangar, there are advanced checks in place to make sure that the hangar is clear and it will not spawn the planey until it is safe to do so. This will avoid any confliction with other players also doing runs. When grabbing a box to load onto the plane, the player will need to do one wing or side at a time to load the boxes. Pug has made some advanced functions to allow each plane to hold up to 6 boxes on different parts of the planes. Once the boxes have all been loaded up, the player will now be tasked with dropping the boxes off over any one of the 20 random pre-configured customer boats ready to grab the packages. The player will receive a sound effect and a blip indicating where the random drop-off location is. On arrival of the boats, the player will see a ring indication of where they roughly need to fly through to drop off the boxes. This ring indicator can be turned off by developers in the config if they are unsatisfied with it. Pug is aware of the different styles that developers like out there and has given the ability for developers to customize every aspect of the script very easily within the config. If the player flies too high while delivering the packages, they will be notified, so and will receive a note item in their inventory with the information of their Coke lab written on it. If a police officer were to catch the player with this item on them, they could use it to raid their Coke lab and shut it down. Once the player has finished dropping off all of their packages, this will be tasked with taking the airplane back to one of the 2 random pre-configured airports marked on the map. Once the player has parked the plane properly, they will be forced out of the plane and to walk to the drop-off pedestrian, they will make a handoff exchange of the down deposit for the plane and the rewarded Coke bricks in return for doing the run. The player will also receive a small pay bonus multiplied by the amount of boxes they have dropped off. Now that the player has received their Coke bricks, they can now take them back down to their Coke lab, where they can store it as supplies for the workers to break down into product over time. That is all for this month's showcase, everyone. I would like to thank you all for checking out this brand new resource Pug is bringing you, and I hope you all enjoy it if you decide to pick it up. I hope you all have a good day, and I'm out.